Welcome to the messy middle of entrepreneurship, unfiltered and unapologetic. Uncensored Entrepreneurs, hosted by Starr, Robert Wall, and Tina Torres-Wilson, brings you real stories from the trenches of building a business. Those late nights, hard lessons, big wins, and everything in between. This is where the truth about entrepreneurship lives. No fluff, no filters, just raw, honest conversations with founders who have lived it. So, if you're over the highlight reel and you're ready for the real deal, hit play. We talk a lot on this show about leadership, but we don't often talk about what that looks like in the home, especially in most cases for women who are used to doing it all. Our next guest shows women how they can create space for their husbands to lead without losing their standards, their voice, or themselves. This is an episode you won't want to miss.
I am so excited. Lemon Price is the founder of Supported Wife Society, host of the Top 2% Global Podcast, and a two-time Forbes-featured entrepreneur. After leaving corporate America in 2018, she built a thriving brand that helps high-achieving wives release the mental load, reset their marriage dynamic, and create legacies of strength and softness. Through her membership retreats and podcasts, Lemon shows women how to stop managing everything alone and start building marriages and lives that truly support them. Welcome, Lemon, to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yes.
We're so excited to have you on, Lemon. And I love your name, by the way. Obviously, I have somewhat of a unique name as well. So welcome.
Starr. I'm going to change my name to Apple.
I like that. Usually people are like, I'm going to change my name to Lime after meeting me. So Apple's a good one.
So, Lemon, you just told us that you're from Savannah, Georgia. I lived in Savannah, Georgia, in Richmond Hill for 16 years.
Okay.
I love Savannah. I know everyone in Savannah. How do I not know you?
Okay. When did you leave Savannah?
2012, and I moved to Atlanta.
Okay. See, so I moved here in 2018.
I have been there since 1996 and moved in 2012.
That's so funny. I'm always in Atlanta. So,
My wonderful co-host, Robert Wall, he tries to come down here to Atlanta. He's missed the last two birthdays because he takes me out to dinner for my birthday. So he definitely owes me a spot to come down here to Atlanta.
One big birthday party, and Lemon, you're invited. So
it's it. I'm coming up.
Welcome to the show. And I absolutely love what you're doing because as an entrepreneur myself and a newly married person myself, it is so hard to manage the two. I just told my husband this week that I am not going to respond to emails and text and stuff like that after 5 o'clock and on weekends. And he was like, you don't have to respond to your people all the time. And I'm like, you know what? I don't.
You don't.
setting those boundaries, but it is hard, right? As an entrepreneur, we all sometimes feel like we're sucked into that vacuum of working 24/7, 7 days a week. Most of the time it's because we're passionate about what we're doing. And I know in many cases we shoulder the burdens, the losses, the traumas that our clients are also involved in.
They get 24-hour access to me because I'm a publisher, Lemon. So if they're writing a book, they get access. They're like, oh, can you check chapter 3 or can you do this? And so they tell me these things and I'm like, oh, let me go look. And so I'll stop everything to go do this. And my husband, he's 100% supports me and loves me to death. But I can see that you're taking away our family time now. And so literally just this week, I'm not going to do this no more. And I'm going to set boundaries. But how do you do that when you've already told people? And you respond at 11 or 12 o'clock at night and they expect you to now. How do you do that? How do you stop?
Oh my gosh. Love that. Do not disturb is your best friend. Somebody was going to crucify me when I say this, but I have an Android and I know people get very offended when I say that. But Android lets you set up different modes on your phone. And so I can literally have work mode and family mode. I have sleep mode set on my phone because nobody's going to disrupt my
Wait,
sleep.
can we do that with Apple?
I don't know, but I know I can.
So if you put do not disturb, what does that do?
So nobody can get through. I think the only person I let get through is my husband and my best friend and my kid's school.
Can't even get a text if it's on do not Or right.
Robert and I have do not disturb for the uncensored entrepreneurs right now.
You can set those parameters for everything, just like Lennon's saying. So just set that in your schedule for those certain times.
I think it's so important to set these boundaries because these guys know, but I've been feeling the last couple of months so burnt out because of that. I literally was on a phone call with one of my coaches the other day, and she was, this is the reason why you feel like this, because you're not stopping. Most people from 9 to 5, they stop, they don't do nothing until the next day. And people know, oh, it's not 9 o'clock yet. They haven't gotten to the office yet. You need to set your office hours and you need to stop responding.
So I will say, no offense, Robert, but women's brains are totally wired differently.
I agree. I'm told that all the time too. And so I submit.
I used to get so mad because my husband, I'd be like, what are you thinking about? And he's like, nothing. How do you think about nothing? And then I read a ton of studies, and it's so crazy. We all have this part of our brain called the default mode network.
I think it's broken because it never stops.
So no, it's not broken. It's because you're a woman. But it's literally ours is connected to memory, emotion, all of these things. And so that's why we're better at recalling dates and birthday because it's embedded. It's amazing to me how women's brains work. That's why our brain is constantly running background chatter and men's don't.
Okay, so Robert, when you go to bed at night, do you fall asleep right away?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I'm not probably your average guy. I'm somewhere in the middle because I'm very emotionally attached, right?
You got a little bit of femininity.
I've got both sides here, just pulling that in, just the way I'm wired. But it's the creative side of me.
I think being a creative is harder because it takes me 2 hours. I have to take medication and all this stuff for my brain to stop. Literally, Robert falls asleep in 5.2 seconds.
But I will say that if I'm tired and burned out, I immediately can shut it off. Just done and over with. If I get disturbed or woke up in the middle of the night, I am up for a couple hours before I go back down. But Lemon, to your point, I love this because the first thing that popped into my mind was this analogy of a meme that floats through social media from time to time, where the couple's laying in bed facing away from each other. And the little thought bubble from her says, I wonder who he's thinking about tonight. And then over there, his is basically either just dots, 0, or it can be like, I wonder how monkeys clean each other or just something completely random.
Something so dumb.
That's us. All right. So keep going.
We got a billion thought bubbles up here.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. And it's literally because that part of our brain just never shuts off at all. And that's why we're always thinking about permission slips. I was thinking about this the other day. So stupid. I was thinking about Thanksgiving and do I have enough napkin ring holders for the amount of people who've already told me they're coming to Thanksgiving?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. My husband's already like, have you thought about Christmas? I'm like, I actually already have a whole list of Christmas gifts. You're welcome in September.
That's so funny, Lyndon, because I always thought that I have this ADHD type of brain as to why all of these thoughts are constantly running around in my head. Not the fact that I'm a woman.
Yeah. Well, and it's because part of our brain is more active than men's. It's why we can plan and think a little bit differently and we anticipate. So the anticipation part of our brain, it's the planning part of our brain. It's the place where the memories are stored. Prime example, if I'm thinking about my kids' homework, I was talking to my husband about this. I'm always thinking about their homework. And I don't understand why this takes up so much space. And I'm like, well, they're both in middle school now, so they need computers to do their homework. And only my 7th grader has one. So it means my 6th grader has to use my computer. I have to plan my day to make sure that I'm not working when he comes home. I can't have any meetings. I can't have anything going on. But then I've got to make sure he's got time to do it in between youth group at church or me making dinner. And then if he doesn't get it done and he fails a test, that's on me and I'm a bad parent. And then he was like, over math homework? All that over math homework. Yes. It's a lot of decision making that has to happen.
Yeah. And he's probably thinking singular, right? Isn't it just a worksheet that they have to go through and fill out 20 problems? I mean, it's just that condensed version. But with that being said, and I don't want to take away actually from the amazing skill set that you've been serving people with, I will say there's a time and a place for both strategies, right? Immediate execution versus that long-term thought, emotional guidance as well. So we understand I humbly accept that. I'm the first one to protect my family physically, and she's okay with that as well. So, with that being said, you talk a great deal about this mental load. In most cases, again, it's women that are taking this on, all the different things that they're carrying. And so, when you think of that high achieving aspect, it's not just what's happening in the household. Now you're bringing in business and work and all these other facets. You talk about the reset, the marriage reset, and allowing and helping women to let some of these things go. Do you want to tap into that a little bit?
100%. And it's funny because I talk to a lot of women and they rattle off a list of all the problems with their husband. And I'm like, well, was it like that when you were dating? And they're like, no, he took so much initiative. He planned the dates. He did all of these things. And then I'm like, you have a control problem. I'm sorry. They don't like to hear that.
What? I didn't hear you. What?
What happens is we end up mothering our husband way too often, right? It's let me do the laundry for you. And then, well, don't put this in the washer. This can't go in the dryer. And so they're like, well, okay, what's the point of me even doing it? Or it's you're reloading the dishwasher because it doesn't load it correctly.
I think what Lemon is leading into is the fact that we let our children touch the hot pot once in a while, right? So they can learn.
And I've seen women sometimes do this too because they lead in business and then they're mothering their husbands unintentionally. The intimacy dies a little bit. You can't be turned on by somebody that you're being a mom to. That's gross, right? We're not into it. So when you take on this parent-child relationship, I hear women all the time, they're like, I actually have 3 children. My husband's my 3rd child. That's gross, right? That's not attractive. Let him melt a couple of lids and it's okay, right? You don't have to hand everything over.
Really interesting topic because I feel like I am not controlling whatsoever in terms of load the dishwasher. I mean, maybe because my husband helps a lot, but he has said, "Oh, you're acting like a dictator," or "You're not my mom." And I'm just, I would never try to be your mom. I don't understand where they pick up on that sometimes, but I don't know. Maybe I need to reevaluate that.
Yeah, I would reevaluate. Just see how you're responding to what he does.
Yeah. This whole topic is extremely interesting. And that's why I love what you're doing because you're bringing this awareness, right? Really almost as like a counsel, right? Not just a coach, but a counselor and bringing 2 aspects in. And I've always found it's all about communication. In most cases, men and women, since we don't think alike, we don't know what the other person's thinking with the assumption that you should just know what I mean. So I love that you're bringing all this to the surface.
You said that good word, assumption. You know what happens, what you assume.
Yes, 110%. And I find that really often too. Women assume that their husband is a mind reader. And just because we're thinking 342 things at one time does not mean our husband is thinking those things. Or why didn't you see the need and meet the need? But it's because 99% of the time, the decisions that we're making and what we're carrying, it's invisible. And you can't share an invisible load with somebody.
No, I'm frustrated about this or I'm anxious about this. No, we're not fine. We're just saying that we're fine because we want you to investigate more or assume what is going on in our little heads.
Yeah. Or we built up the story that it's just easier for me to do it myself rather than handing it off to our partners. It's the same as entrepreneurs, right? I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. They're like, I don't hire a VA or a this or that because it's easier for me just to do it myself. And all you're doing is overwhelming yourself.
I like the help. To be particular about how you do things, but
But it was hard. Or wasn't it hard? Delegate that? Okay, you can take it over. Wait. Don't do it that way.
yeah, I think for me, it's more or less when you go back to the mind reading topic, I think that was really interesting for me because I met my husband when I was 19 years old and we did split up in that time and had different relationships and things like that. And we came back to our soulmates, which are one another. But I'd assume that he knows so much about me. You automatically know what I'm thinking. So I don't feel the need to explain, but that is so true. That's an assumption that I just assume that he knows what I want him to know.
Oh, yeah. I think we do that all the time. And I like thinking about my husband. We're constantly learning and growing. And the husband I met a decade ago is not the husband I have now. I can't operate under the assumption that he knows what I'm thinking or I know what he's thinking or how he's processing something just because we learn and we grow.
We're not the same at all because, and I talk about this a lot on here, going through menopause and doing all the perimenopause stuff, you start to change. And I don't know if you guys all know about this TikTok club called We Do Not Care Club. And it's all for the perimenopause and menopause women who do not care. Like Drew Barrymore had him on the show. I don't care that I don't have my makeup on. I don't care that my house is a wreck. I don't care anymore. And once you get to that I don't care spot, you really don't care no more.
I saw a group on that topic for the first time yesterday, and I said, "What is this?" And I went in and I saw all the topics, and I don't know that I agree with that, and maybe it's an age factor or where I'm at in life. Some of it, yes, there are certain things that don't bother me that I would have been concerned about in my 20s that I could care less now, but I feel like if you're in a relationship, these things are very, very relevant, that you do take care of yourself and you do want to present yourself in a certain way for your spouse.
Yeah. And Lemon, since you're already doing this work, and I'm really curious to find out more about this, we talk on the surface about initially there's very singular thought processes. We run in auto mode. Women are typically doing this day-to-day function. Men are taking care of this. Not always. I'm just saying in the routine of their life. However, you talk about reset and you talk about informing what this relationship looks like and how it can manage on a different level. So by doing that, when you think about that in itself, most of us think this is just the way it is, but that's not the case, correct? So we can reprogram ourselves to be, I would imagine, more compassionate, more communicative, just all these different things that will help us in the growth of not just our lives, our relationships, but business as well.
Yes, 110%. Yeah, I think it's fixable if at least one person wants to fix it. Because some people are like, what do you mean it takes both of you to fix it? Well, sometimes it takes just one of you to start changing your behavior in order for the other to respond. It didn't happen overnight. You didn't wake up and suddenly you were mothering your partner or controlling everything about your business. So if your dynamic is like this and you'd rather be like this, you can't just flip it 180, right? Because then everything's going to fall apart. I talk to women who do it all the time. They throw their hands up. They're like, okay, you figure out everything I've been managing on their own. That's not fair to your partner either. It sounds terrible. You've trained your partner for this dynamic. It's usually the women who control how that goes. You have to slowly start lowering your temperature so he can step up.
We hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as we are. One thing we've learned through building our own businesses and from the stories we hear on this podcast is that podcasting can be one of the most powerful tools for growth, but only when it's done strategically. That's why we're such fans of So True. It's a podcast strategy and production agency that helps entrepreneurs create shows that lead to real results, audience growth, aligned leads, and increased sales. So, if you're thinking about starting a podcast or you want to get better results from the one that you already have, check them out at sotruemedia.com. That's sotruemedia.com. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Right. And feel safe to do it without being criticized or any of those things. And I also think you have to look at your past relationships. Both my husband and I, we've been divorced before for very different reasons. And they were both traumatic reasons. And so my husband, even though I wasn't parenting him, he had such a trauma response. He was afraid to do things because he was afraid I was going to criticize him, even though I had never done that.
It was the rolled up newspaper, right? I think it comes back to all this emotional awareness, intellectual awareness, communication with one another at different levels. They talk about the love language between each other. That's a huge thing. Understanding each other's triggers as well. I think it goes both ways, but men talk a great deal about, I just want to be respected, right? We have a different definition at times. And so I really like this. And I think it's so critical with divorce. And by the way, I'm not pointing fingers at you. I'm raising my hand here. Been there. So we've all been there. The point is, statistically speaking, we've all been there. And so they make such a heavy weight on the exit of a relationship instead of the entry of a relationship. Anyone could go out and get married right now. It could take years to actually exit that relationship. So I think it should be heavier on the front end. And the work that you're doing is so critical in that. I mean, I really think that couples should spend time looking into some of these things and these resources before they actually walk down the aisle.
That's Tony and I did the same thing. He's never been married. But when we got married, he knew all the things that I had to deal with, my ex's thing. So even till this day, we just got married in February, and these guys watched our whole little love story unravel. But we were friends for 10 years before we started dating. And so he knew everything. Even up until like yesterday, I'll apologize for things and he'll be, I'm not him. Don't apologize. Don't act like I'm going to hurt you because this is not where it's going. You got to tell them things that you have gone through so they can see and adjust their conversation or know that you said this because that's how you're always done it beforehand. That communication is so important because the marriage I have today with Tony and the marriage I had with my ex, oh my gosh, completely different.
So share with us this wisdom, Lemon, so that we can learn a little bit more and our audience can really tap into this. When people hear this later on, I want them to be able to lean into this and really understand what are some major things that you're seeing on the surface, maybe 2 or 3 main points that you see that you address. And then do you have any tips, tricks, techniques that you could share today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tina, I will tell you first and foremost, it's going to take a while before I share stuff because of whatever you've been through and the fact that you have this automatic response, right? It puts your body into fight or flight. Your cortisol levels are probably high. All those things are high. I hate this, right? Because it's not fair to yourself. They didn't cause the trauma, they didn't cause the issue, and yet they're having to adapt. They have to adapt and they have to learn what works and how to respond to you and make you feel safe and cared for. My husband was military, and so he has some PTSD triggers that we worked through. It just happened a couple of weeks ago. We had a party. We opened a bottle of champagne. As soon as I touched it, the cork popped. That he wasn't anticipating it. I wasn't anticipating it. Scared me. But he was in our garage having a panic attack for a couple of minutes, and everybody around was, "Do we need to go?" I'm like, "No, it'll be fine. I know how to handle him now. We're okay." So just give yourself and him the grace. Obviously, I know you will. And I agree, Robert. This is something I think couples should do way more in the beginning. My husband and I, because we were both divorced, we put it all out on the table, the type of decor that I want in my home. I'm not going to fight over a kitchen sink style. I'm not doing it anymore. We have this radical honesty policy, which isn't always fun. I won't pretend that I enjoy everything. We're like, listen, if it hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, but I would rather you know whatever I'm thinking and feeling and we move forward with whatever.
Me holding anything back and in 3 months it festers up into this big, huge blowout fight.
Yeah. And that was something I had to learn. My first husband struggled with an opioid addiction and things got a little aggressive at times. And so I had to learn how to be honest. I couldn't do that in the first marriage. So he had to give me space to learn how to even just communicate my feelings in a way that I wasn't afraid of the rolled up newspaper anymore. A big thing I see is just not communicating what's going on with whatever they're thinking or feeling, whatever they're holding on to. They hold on to it, they let it fester, or they built a story up in their mind about what their husband thinks or feels about the situation or how he's going to respond to a situation. And a lot of times when I work with women through this, I'm like, go talk to him about this thing and then report back. And they're like, wow, he was so kind and gentle and gave me a safe space. And it was not at all what I anticipated. You created a whole problem in your brain.
And we all do that. That's why this work is so critical. We all create the narrative quite often, and it's always going to be an extreme, or we replay maybe new characters in the movie, but it's a movie maybe from our past, something that triggers us, something that's happened with our exes and other relationships where it's in the present. And all it is the character we've swapped out, thinking that this is exactly what's going on, when in many cases it's not.
So, Lemon, since our audience is filled with entrepreneurs, there's one question that I wanted to ask you earlier, and it was about your journey into entrepreneurship. I think it was back in 2018. How did you know that it was time for you to leave corporate, get into entrepreneurship, and how did you get into this work?
Okay, love this question. I didn't even know that entrepreneurship, especially online business, was a thing until 2011. So I know this is very beforehand, but I was in undergrad and my professor said, we have to create a blog. They called it online journalism then, but it was a blog. And so I was freshly 21. I did bar and restaurant reviews because I grew up in a tourist town and it's so fun. I had to go out and eat and drink for a grade and write about it and take photos. Best job I could ever have. I loved it so much. And I was actually going to school to be a teacher. I thought I was going to work in elementary schools. And this was just a fun thing I did. And then it went super viral. For as viral as something could go, it's still page 2 of Google, which is crazy that it's 14 years old.
Wow.
I ended up at a boutique PR firm because of it before I ever graduated from college. And it was great. We won a couple of international awards. I kept moving up, moving up. And I was the CMO of a tech company by the time I was 26. And I would go to events and people are like, oh, it's a social media manager. I'm like, no, I'm the CMO of this tech company. And they're like, that doesn't make sense. That's a 40-year-old person's job. So that helped that company. I think they only hired me because the company was failing. And so it was, well, if the company continues to fail, we can blame it on the fact that we hired a 26-year-old. Or if it's really successful, well, we didn't pay the 26-year-old what we would pay a 40-year-old. So it's a win for us either way.
Exactly.
But we did really well. And so I was 27 and I maxed out. There's nowhere to go corporately. I'm tapped out. So I left corporate. That's when I moved to Georgia. I was living up in New Jersey at the time, moved to Georgia, started my own PR firm, which was great. I worked with some really incredible women who were running just amazing businesses, and all of them had the same kind of problems. And I was like, that's very interesting. And I got some leadership development, took some leadership certification courses to coach and everything with ICF because I was, maybe it's a leadership development problem. And then the more I talked to them, we have a marriage problem. And they're like, why is your marriage good? And so that's how I ended up here.
My second marriage, and I know what I'm doing now.
Right. The first marriage when I got married at 24 was not a great idea. Second one was good.
Yeah, reset. Exactly.
Wow. How interesting the different dynamics from childhood education to PR to marketing to now you're helping save people's marriages.
It is definitely not what I intended to do at all by any stretch of the imagination. And even now, it still feels surreal that this is what I'm doing, but it really was just from so many conversations with people. I'm still a super ambitious person, so I serve in Savannah. I'm always in Atlanta because I'm the legislative liaison for our junior league. And so I'm always up in Atlanta doing stuff for advocacy work. And I serve as their PR chair, which is fun. So people are like, I don't understand. You're running a business, you're traveling. I went to St. Louis for junior league. He's so cool with you just traveling. And the Forbes thing, they're like, was that an issue between your marriage? I'm like, no, my husband went and bought me a very expensive purse to celebrate. And he was so proud of the accomplishment. They're like, okay, so then what's it like at home? And I'm like, I shut my brain off at home. I've lived in Savannah now for 7 years. And I still use my GPS to get places. I called him the other day, so excited because I got home from Savannah without my GPS.
Right? What can our audience take away if you were to give them one last nugget? What would you tell them if they're listening to this and they're like, you know what? I need her. This is exactly what I'm going through. My brain doesn't shut off. I can't set these boundaries like Tina is trying to. What can you tell them and how can they get in touch with you and a hold of you?
I love this question. I would say the first thing you have to do is write down everything your brain is carrying. Really write every single decision you're making, everything you're thinking about. Are you thinking about the toothpaste being low and homework and trips? What is on your brain? And just write it all down. Because once you write it down, you're like, well, no wonder I'm tired. Write down for business, write down for your personal life, for every single thing that your brain thinks about, write it down. And then I always categorize it. So then I can start trying to offload some of it. And what is something I don't need to think about? What is a story I'm telling myself that is consuming my thoughts that doesn't actually exist in reality? Until you get some clarity on what is actually going on, you can't start to delegate and remove, and it's not going to be an enjoyable process. I think it really is the first step, though, to switching your dynamic, to freeing up some brain space, to creating more intimacy in your marriage. Because if you're carrying all of the plates, then it's not attractive.
No, you can't be intimate when you have I got to do this.
Yeah, it's hard. So I have to have the lights off when I'm intimate because if the lights are on, sometimes it's because we're feeling some type of way about our body, but it's because I can see the laundry in the corner of the room, right?
I need to do the laundry over there.
Right. Right. And then you're like, why is my sex life not working so well? That's because you're thinking about laundry. That's not working. You have to get it all out of your brain.
There's a technique, these brain dumps, you've heard of that, and that's where you're leading. I love that concept. It's worked for me as well because I am a heavy thinker. I do typically have multiple things going on. Like I said, maybe not the typical guy, but in the mornings, if you do those brain dumps, and it doesn't matter, like you're saying, what it's about. It could be anything. It could be like, I thought about rehearsing and doing this. I'm thinking about my kids riding a bike today. You just put it all on paper and it really does clear, right? The conscious.
Yeah, 110%. When you write it down and you see everything that you're juggling, it makes such a difference because we juggle so much. And it's where decision fatigue comes in and all the adults make on average 35,000 decisions a day, which is an insane amount of decisions a day. Obviously, most of them are on a subconscious level. So I also tell people, what are things you can remove decision from? My best friend, she wears her uniform every day. She gets dressed. She is a real estate agent. And so she's, I know when I get up in the morning, I'm going to the gym though first. I have 10 pairs of the same black leggings, everything. And she's like, so I don't have to think about it. It's done. It's one decision she doesn't have to make. It frees up so much of my space to not think about like DoorDash for lunch because I meal prepped weeks in advance. It's in my freezer. I can microwave it and move on.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference in how I feel at the end of the day. Removing the decisions that don't actually mean anything.
I love that. So obviously we could sit here and we could talk forever because there's so much information to learn from you. And as always, having you back on the show, I know we're going to peel back more layers. What I'm interested in for myself, even for my wife and other clients that could use your services immediately, what are ways that you deliver some of those first steps? Is it in group coaching, one-on-one? Do you have some things online? Maybe some resources that they could tap into now?
I love that. So I have a podcast, the Supported Wife Society, which makes it easy. We are going to launch a mail track. That is something I've been asked for a ton. So that's exciting. But then I just have a community. So it is paid for the whole year, but it's live coaching every week. There's a ton of training. We do a really fun State of the Union for your marriage every quarter, some vision casting, all that fun stuff to get you and your husband getting aligned on your vision. Because that I have learned is a big misalignment on a lot of people. So it's fun. Budgeting workshops, all kinds of really fun things we do inside of that community.
I love that. And is the best place for them to start tapping into that at the lemonprice.co?
Yep. Best place to go. You can find me on Instagram. I'm a really hard person to Google. If you Google lemon price, you will get the price of lemons at your local grocery store. And people love it. They're like, that's so funny. I mean, if I was like a hardened criminal, I guess that would be beneficial.
Do you know what, my Tina Torres? There is a nice porn star in Texas, and I can never get on top of her on Google.
No, wait, that's not cute, Tina? Just kidding.
Oh my gosh, the lack of appreciation for the pun.
I know. She said, get on top. I heard it.
I say that in my speech when I'm on stage, and everybody just starts cracking up, especially the guys. The girls don't get it too.
So if you go to any social media and type in my name, then you'll find me. But if you Google me, then
You're gonna get the price of lemons, 3 for $1.
yeah, let me know what they are where you are. That would be cool. Maybe they're a better price than where my lemons are. Who knows? But yeah, I would love to connect and just talk to people about this because I'm so insanely passionate about this.
Robert said we can sit here and talk to you for hours and hours. We would definitely like to have you back on. But congratulations on your accomplishments and the transition, the pivoting. That's everybody, right? Every entrepreneur has to have that pivot, and you show them exactly how to do it. We love to have you here. Thank you so much for an amazing conversation.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Lemon. We really enjoyed the show. I think it's a very interesting topic for our audience, and we're uncensored, so I think it's perfect for what we do. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us and also for supporting us and our audience.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a nice day. And please tune in again next week, all across both social media and all of the streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to your podcast, to Uncensored Entrepreneurs, and you'll find /Lemon Price. So we thank you. Have a nice day. And that is the Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. If you're getting value from the show, take a minute to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you tune in. It helps more bold entrepreneurs find us. Until next time, keep showing up, uncensored and unapologetic. And we'll catch you on the next episode.